I'm Tseng. I'm a Singapore qualified lawyer and I work at Shein, which is a global online fashion and lifestyle retailer, and I work as the Senior Legal Counsel for Sustainability. In that role, I advise and support the company on legal, ethical and compliance matters in relation to sustainability and its ambitions in relation to sustainability. Did my undergraduate degree at NUS and then went to UCL for my postgraduate LLM degree. And since coming back, I have steered my career in sustainability in the law. I began continuing to work with my law firm for about a year, where I helped to establish the ESG practice, and then moved on to this NGO called Client Earth, where I spent the better part of about 2 years before taking on this current role, which I've been at for more than a year. So I began my career as a disputes lawyer at Allen & Gledhill, but it was around the time of 2018 where the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, released a report. The 2018 report in particular was worrying and painted a rather gloomy picture of where we were in terms of our climate. We were, by that point, not on track to meeting the 1.5 degree threshold. In fact, what the report had stated was that if we continued along the trajectory that we were on, we would breach the 1.5 degree threshold anywhere between 2030 to 2052. And if you think about that, that's not a long time more. And so that really inspired a change within me to try and see what I could do in my personal capacity about the climate change problem. But at the end of the day, I'm very much a product of my circumstances. I was still practicing law in a law firm, but was quite ready to leave the law at that point in time. But I think my parents had some hesitation about me leaving the law entirely. And so that led me down a path of sort of looking at whether I could pursue an LLM and satisfy both sides of myself and my parents' expectations, and actually pursue an LLM in environmental law and policy. So that's exactly what I did. Within a month of reading this report, I made that decision and I applied to UCL. Managed to get in a month after that, I was off to UCL. Over time, my mindset has shifted as well, where I did see there being value and a space for lawyers to actually contribute to climate action. I thought that initially it would be, the engineers and the scientists who would have a greater role to play. But I realized after some time that there was a space for lawyers to actually play a role. Eventually deciding to do the LLM was my first foray into sustainability. And since then, I've opened up my mind to a lot of ways in which I think the law and business can actually contribute to climate action and ESG as a whole. And so when I wrote my dissertation under my LLM, it was about the role that corporations can play in sustainability. That really set me off on a path in really trying to understand that role better and understand how lawyers can play a role in supporting corporations towards integrating sustainability into their operations. So the very first thing to appreciate is that the legal and regulatory landscape in relation to sustainability has matured enormously over the last 5 to 7 years, including in this part of the world. So as in-house counsel, at a basic level, is helping the business navigate that landscape. The second point is to really be able to keep a finger to the pulse of emerging regulatory trends. So understanding where compliance risks might lie, understand what expectations surrounding decarbonization might be, supply chain standards and due diligence might be as well. So us as in-house counsel will then provide strategic direction based on where those regulatory trends are going, and hopefully help and support the company adopt best practice. The third point is that implementation of internal policies is just as important as having them. And so it's important that as a company, we demonstrate that internal practice reflects our external policies. It's about making sure that we completely appreciate what the flow down requirements are with our employees, our suppliers, making sure that they know what the policies are and they know what they need to do to make sure that they play their part in the implementation of the policy. It's also making sure that along the way, we are keeping our business teams and our employees well informed about our policies so they understand and appreciate the value that it brings to the company in relation to sustainability. So I see those two things as being intimately intertwined. Managing ESG risks, whether we're talking about regulatory, reputational, or operational risk, is not just about avoiding harm. It's about positioning the business for long-term resilience. The way in which we frame our advice is so that compliance becomes a foundation for the business to develop strategy. We help the business to meet legal and stakeholder expectations while identifying opportunities to strengthen our brand, to improve efficiency, and ultimately appeal to conscious consumers and investors. So ESG risk management becomes a springboard to a competitive advantage and not just a safeguard.